President Trump's trade war is in the spotlight this week, with the back and forth causing tension for global markets. On that and more of the week's news, we turn now to the analysis of Capehart and Panuru. That's Jonathan Capehart, associate editor for The Washington Post, and Ramesh Panuru, editor for The National Review. David Brooks is away this evening. It's good to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So, from the indiscriminate firings of federal workers to the now on-again, off-again tariff plan, confusion has been a real feature of this second Trump term. Jonathan, let's talk about the tariffs first, because that has been the story of the week. What stands out to you about the degree to which the tariff reversals and delays have really injected chaos into the economy and the financial markets?
Well, that's what I was going to point out. This on again, off again, yes, no, pause, nowhere a go, no, we're not. I don't cover business, but I've been following business for a long time, and I've long heard that business loves certainty. And what the president has done since his inauguration, and definitely this week, is inject an amount of uncertainty into the economy, into business, that we've seen wild gyrations of the stock market. And, you know, one of the reasons I think the president backed away a couple of times from these tariffs is the market was tanking. And even though he said in the Oval Office, I'm not paying attention to the markets, we've been covering him long enough to know that he absolutely watches the market. He absolutely takes phone calls from Fortune 500 and from Wall Street leaders, telling it like, hey, you got to do something about this. And until the president decides that he's actually going to pull the trigger on these tariffs, I think we're going to go through weeks like this for a while.
And Donald Trump has been a fan of tariffs dating back to the 80s. So why not now have a concrete plan? Why this hasty rollout where things have to be reversed after the fact? Or is the chaos and the unpredictability, is that the point?
Well, I think that a certain degree of impulsiveness may be more central to Trump than any particular conviction, even one as deep-rooted as his love of tariffs, which he continues to say is a beautiful word. You know, over the last 6 weeks, I have read dozens of references in the commentary to energy in the executive, how energetic the new administration is being. Energy in the executive is a phrase that comes from Hamilton, Federalist Papers number 70. He says it's essential. Why is it essential? For the steady administration of the laws. I don't think that's what we're seeing here. I think we're seeing the very opposite of that.
Well, meantime, President Trump said yesterday that the next phase of his plan to cut the federal workforce would be conducted, he says, with a scalpel rather than a hatchet, and what appears to be a step aimed at restraining Elon Musk. We'll see what comes of it. But the New York Times has this incredible reporting on a cabinet meeting where the cabinet secretary's frustration seems to have boiled over, and it includes this exchange with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. It says, Mr. Duffy said the young staff of Mr. Musk's team was trying to lay off air traffic controllers. What am I supposed to do, Mr. Duffy said. I have multiple plane crashes to deal with now, and your people want me to fire air traffic controllers? Mr. Musk told Mr. Duffy that his assertion was a lie. Mr. Duffy insisted it was not. He had heard it from them directly. This suggests that it's not just Democrats who are concerned about the speed and intensity of these cuts.
What's interesting about this story is that in some ways it gives me a level of relief that on the surface they seem to be lockstep with the president, lockstep with Elon Musk, but behind the scenes they are doing the business of governing. Elon Musk is an unelected person who is wielding a wrecking ball through the federal government. And air traffic controllers, the people who are safeguarding the nuclear stockpile, researching bird flu. There's no nuance. There's no scalpel here. And I think it's too late for the president to say, please go with the scalpel. How can you use a scalpel on an organization that's been ripped to shreds?
Here's what doesn't make sense to me about this, the way the administration is slashing government. We know that Donald Trump seems to relish punishing people who don't support him. But with these cuts, he's targeting his supporters. I mean, he wants to slash the workforce at the VA, which employs a lot of veterans. Donald Trump won the veteran vote by a wide margin, something like 60%. He wants to get rid of the education department, which would hurt red states because red states get far more education funding from the federal government than do blue states. These decisions, these actions don't seem politically aligned in many ways.
Right. But I also think that some of it is government cutting theater. So if you look closely at the Department of Education proposals that Republicans, including Trump and Secretary of Education Linda McMahon, have talked about, they don't actually get rid of the programs. They just shuffle them to different parts of the federal bureaucracy. You can say, well, we no longer have a department. We no longer have a building called the Department of Education, but everything is still there. And I think in some ways, DOGE is a way of pretending that you're cutting government while you're not actually doing any of the things that it would actually take to cut the deficit. And you're seeing pushback now from Congress also. Congress wants to be in on the action. On Wednesday, Musk met with senators, and they said these cuts have to go through Congress first. They have to have a constitutional form. That's the only way they're going to make any lasting change. But the chasm right now is between what they can accomplish and what Musk and Trump keep talking about.
I'm sort of leaping on your saying that this is cutting theater and pretending to cut the government, but tell that to the thousands of government workers who have lost their jobs or who have lost their jobs and been told they are reinstated because suddenly someone realizes, oh, this person who we thought was not essential is actually essential. I mean, this theater is having a real life impact.
Absolutely. You're going to have the most disruption for the least in savings. Right? You may get, some people are going to lose their jobs. Some of them will get reinstated in the legal process. But even if they don't, we're not going to see a balanced budget, which is what Trump is talking about.
Right.
If you look internationally, though, as Donald Trump seeks to downgrade the transatlantic alliance that has kept this world safe for the past 80 years, he has set off this unprecedented rearmament among NATO allies, which is something that a number of presidents have tried to do to get Europe to care about and pay for their security as much as the U.S. does. Did the chaos, did the unpredictability in that sense work, Jonathan?
Sure, it worked. They're going to spend more money on their own defense. But why? Because they can no longer depend on the United States to protect them if Russia rolls over into the Baltic states, if Russia rolls over into Poland, if the United States doesn't satisfy Article 5, which is an attack on one NATO member is an attack on all. I view their comments as, we don't know the United States anymore. We certainly don't know the United States under President Trump, and we need to safeguard our own security from him. That's the way I read it.
Well, I mean, I think the U.S. security guarantee has been something that Europeans have relied on, and unfortunately that has led them to underinvest in their own defense. I understand the impulse among a lot of Americans to get the U.S. and Europe to rebalance these commitments. What I don't see from the administration, what I've never really seen from Trump, is any acknowledgement that NATO is the most successful alliance in history and that it still serves an important role in keeping the peace in Europe and around the globe.
In the time that remains, let's talk about Gavin Newsom, shall we? Because the California governor, he's broken with many elected Democrats by saying he thinks it's deeply unfair to allow transgender women and girls to compete in female sports. Take a listen to what he said in this podcast.
Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. It is an issue of fairness.
So
it's deeply unfair.
would you speak out again?
So this is coming amid a debate among Democrats about, how much did cultural factors play a role in their huge defeat in November, and how do they address it? How does this strike you, Jonathan?
Well, look, Governor Newsom is somebody whose credentials in LGBTQ rights were cemented 21 years ago when he, against the advice of every Democrat in the country, issued marriage licenses to same-sex couples. So this is not a question of whether he has thrown the community under the bus after 2 decades. But what this shows is, and what I wished he had done, because I actually listened to the podcast and this entire section, and he kept talking about fairness, which I get, but he didn't talk more fully about what exactly do you mean. And the conversation with Charlie Kirk, I mean, the way he says, no men in female sports, just the way he talks about that, we're not talking about men in drag pretending to be women in sports. We're talking about trans women, trans girls. But what I would really like and what I loved about this segment on trans athletes with Dr. Bradley Annawalt, he puts it, he says it perfectly. There's a tension here between fairness and allowing people who want to play sports to play sports. What we need to do is, as Americans, and certainly elected officials have a more nuanced and thoughtful conversation. This is not a black and white issue. This is something that requires a lot of thoughtful conversation led by scientists, led by doctors, led by people who actually know something about this. And the last thing I'll say is, I'm an out gay man. I came up during the 1980s when there was the AIDS epidemic and people were out in the streets saying, hey, we are here. Will and Grace comes along, and suddenly there's a cultural change, a change in the country and how they viewed LGBTQ folks. We need to have that same kind of cultural conversation when it comes to the T, one that is nuanced and thoughtful and not sort of bombastic in the way that Charlie Kirk talks about.
We'll have to leave it there. I'm so sorry we're out of time. Sorry. Jonathan Capehart, we'll have you back and we'll get you to weigh in. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks.